In 1957, I was born out of wedlock to an Irish-English mother and Jamaican father, both of which were poorly educated. My early years were spent in poverty, and by the time I was 3, my mother bore 3 children. Bernadette, who was originally the eldest, died before I was born. Then came me, and then after that was my little sister Elaine. When money was tight, moods ran high, and tolerance of anything slightly annoying to my mother became very low. It was on one of these low days that Elaine had been crying incessantly, and her high-pitched tones were too much for my mother's short temper, and so she snapped, grabbed a pillow, put it over her face, while I looked on in helpless horror, terror, fear, anger, and sadness. After a short while, Elaine cried no more, nor would I ever get to see or play with her ever again in this lifetime. I was left alone with a mother aware that I had witnessed her actions, and boy, was I going to pay. I was going to pay in later years for that involuntary intrusion. My mother, Margaret McEwen, fell pregnant again and had 2 more children with my father, Bill Matthias. They were Paul and Dorothy. It became apparent to social services by then that this was not an ideal setting for children to grow up in. So we were taken away and temporarily put into a convent in Mill Hill. Behind me is St. Vincent's Orphanage, and this is where we stayed. This is where I came when I was 4 years of age. We were in Mill Hill, and it's changed. In 58 years it would have changed. When I was here there were cows, there were all kinds of stuff here, but this was a very, very cold place. Our first place from leaving home. We were in here, I don't know how long we stayed here for, but I remember it being very scary. And the Sisters of Charity, that's what they were called at the time. I think now they're called the Daughters of Charity, but when in the 60s, they were called the Sisters of Charity. And coming into this environment as a young child, to see those Sisters of Charity with the massive hats that they had on, almost horn-like, seriously demonic. They were very, very cold, they were very harsh, and they were very unfeeling. I never liked the place, and as soon as I left, I wanted to forget the place. Very sinister place. Right now, we're just across the road from the orphanage, St. Vincent's Orphanage, and across the road, Daughters of Charity of St. Vincent de Paul used to look after the children in the orphanage. But also, a dark history is that they were investigated in Scotland and worldwide for child abuse, with good reason. So, life as a child wasn't all bad, because here at 270 Long Drive was the happiest part of my childhood. And that over there was my bedroom. I remember it very, very well. And I think there was a bathroom in the back there. There was a massive garden around the back, which, by the way, we've just looked over the wall, me and my friend Billy. We just looked over the wall and it's still there. And that front door, I can remember as clear as day. I was thinking around about seven years of age. There was a woman in there. There were 2 women in there, Auntie Evelyn and Auntie Alice, but Auntie Alice was the favourite because she was more like a mum. And she would stand there first thing in the morning with our halib orange. She used to make us take all these vitamins, right? Halib orange, and see us off in a really lovely way. This place gave us stability. It's also pretty religious. I wasn't really keen on that part of it all, but you know, because it was like a Roman Catholic kind of thing, and there was like church every day, or you know, we had to do church on a Tuesday, and the church was instilled in us quite a lot. You know, I mean, I don't mind churches, and a lot of it was good, but it was too much. It was too much for a child like me, who didn't understand even how she was living. But this place This place taught us manners. This place gave me stability. This place was my respite. This place saved my life. About a couple of 100 yards up from 270 Long Drive is Bluebell Wood, and we are in it right now. And as a child, there was around about 8 of us in the children's home. All of us used to come here and play, and it was our playground. We could play for days in this place, from morning till night. We'd always have something to find that would keep us. Well, sometimes we'd have a camp. Sometimes all the times we'd be climbing the trees. This is the place where I learned to climb trees. This is probably the place where I had my first scars on my knees. You know, it was okay to fall in those days. There was no health and safety thing going on. And this is also the place where it was covered in blue. A carpet full of bluebells. That's why it was called Bluebell Wood. It was a beautiful place. Up the hill from the children's home, couldn't be more than 5 minutes walk. We'd all walk up with Auntie Alice and Auntie Evelyn, all the kids, and we'd come to this place, and there'd be loads of people here. So it's like the whole neighbourhood would be here. And this place, I think Our Lady of Peace, Roman Catholic Church, we used to be here every single Sunday. And I used to remember having to sit there for an hour or an hour and a half until everything was done, and the prayers and the singing and the this and the that. I have to say I was actually completely bored, and it didn't resonate with me at all. But I see how it serves its purpose. But I remember thinking, why are they taking half my pocket money away? I didn't understand why they were taking half my pocket money away. We had to give them threepence, and we only got sixpence. And that was half my pocket money. I wasn't very happy about that. Another thing I remember here is we used to have to go to confession and for our sins. So I used to have to lie because I didn't have any sins. So I lied. I had to lie to the priest to tell him that I had sins. Behind me, we're on the corner of Tavistock Square and Bedford Way. And Bedford Way is the first house of horrors that I resided in after living in our fabulous children's home in Slough. And we came here and we were thrown in with these brothers and sisters that we never knew we had. And it was just chaos, complete and utter chaos. There was no happy time in this home, not one that I can remember. A couple of years ago, I just by chance happened to ask my sister, what was the most ingrained memory that you had of us in our early days? And she said, the image of you sliding down the bathroom door with blood all over your head.
The other one, if we go through it, we kind of go off our butt.
I couldn't believe that. And that's the reason why I'm here today, because I didn't remember that, but she did. And so I've looked back into the channels of my mind and started to remember quite a bit of stuff. And the reason why I'm here today now is to put it on record. Is to put it on record. And I'm still alive to tell the tale. And as I'm still alive to tell the tale, I'm able to teach. These where I lived were Edwardian houses, and the houses that we were living in were poverty-stricken. And you know, that's really all I want to say about this place, because it was not a happy time for me. I went from a solid, fabulous place to a nightmare that I never knew I'd ever get out of. It was sometime in the 70s. I used to live here, and this place gives me the creeps. It wasn't a nice time for me here. I lived here with my mother and my brothers and sisters, and it just wasn't a nice time. And I remember going upstairs to a lovely lady. I think I was about 11 or 12 actually, because my secondary school was around the corner, and I was in the first year there, so I must have been about 11, and used to go up for some respite from the woman, from the neighbour upstairs, who used to give me cigarettes. I was smoking at the age of 10, so, and she used to look out for me, and she used to, you know, hear what was going on downstairs, and just wasn't a really nice time. It wasn't all so bad, because I also used to have some friends. And one of my best friends lived in a place over there called Candida Court, which we're going to go to in a minute. And she was my dearest friend. But here I had a good friend that used to look out for me. I can't even remember her name, it's so sad. It's such a shame, because she was my lifeline for when I used to get those beatings and everything else. On the flip side, when my mother wasn't around doing all that kind of stuff, I used to have a boyfriend called Tony O'Leary. God bless him, I hope he's still alive. I might look him up on Facebook one day. But this is where I used to hang out when I was a kid, and it doesn't look very much now, because it's actually changed quite a lot. We never had all these barriers and bars and all that kind of stuff. We can't get into the building, unfortunately. But I'll never forget Ellen Terry Court was not a very nice time for me here. Candida Court. This Candida Court is where all our friends used to hang out. In fact, we used to all hang out here. Everything's changed, of course. After, I guess, about 40-something years, it's going to change, isn't it? In fact, it's probably even more than 40, it's about 45 years. And we were here as teenagers. And my best friend, Teresa Caulfield, and her beautiful family, they were Irish. Me and Teresa used to go to school at St Richard's of Chichester. We're going to go to that in a minute. And whenever it got really violent at home, I'd run away there. And until one day, I just had had enough of being beaten up, and I ran away. And I think Teresa was on the 4th or 5th floor, and we used to have some serious fun in that place. All of our friends used to hang out there, but more importantly, that was my biggest respite. My dear best friend. And the good thing about all of this is, I still know her today. How cool is that? I'm 11 years of age, and we're outside my school, St Richard's of Chichester, which was a Roman Catholic school for boys and girls. It was a mixed school, and it was the most fun I could have being away from home. But there were some real characters in here. There were some great teachers. There were some poor teachers in there, but there were mainly a good set of people in here, and I had some of the best times of my life in this school. Here we are in Hendon, and this is, where are we now? What's the name of the street?
2nd Avenue.
2nd Avenue.
Number 9.
And this is where this wasn't actually where I met this guy, but I was in a children's home in Boreham Wood, and I come from a children's home from Boreham Wood into this house with this lovely man. This lovely man was my boyfriend at that time, in fact my first boyfriend, and it was my first taste of independence. And we had some great fun here. We just did all kinds of things here. In fact, I actually think that I started my first music thing here because you encouraged me, didn't you? Billy was the first person actually to encourage me to sing in front of people, and I was extremely shy. Can you remember that time?
Yeah, yes,
and it was like Knock on Wood. We were singing Knock on Wood, and you were playing piano really badly. But do you remember those days?
That's true.
No, it wasn't actually, no, but it was just such an inspiring moment. I remember Billy had a Hillman Minx. The extra place is still the same door. Can you see? I can't believe it's still the same door. And it looks exactly the same. And you're going to see some pictures in a minute coming up. We'll show you exactly the same as it was. But we used to have our car just over here. And of course it was a 1970s car because it was the 1970s. We were wearing flared trousers, afros, and you name it. It was an amazing time.
Good time.
Okay, so this is 19 Bracy Street, and it was nothing short of the young ones. There were maybe five people in there. My good friend, Chris Mustow, who's a drummer in the band, at the time, I wasn't really a musician of any sort, but I had been asked to join the Bellestars, and I was just going through my first months of rehearsal with this band. I'd also met Chrissy Boy from Madness, who I was going out with, And I also had been doing something with Paul Weller in terms of like doing some kind of promotional thing that he was doing. And I remember Chrissy Boy coming, knocking on the door, and Paul Weller was on the phone. What was he on the phone for? Oh yeah, he was asking me to sing on his single, The Bitterest Pill. And Chrissy Boy knocks on the door, and what's he doing? He's wearing his whole regalia from a video that he's just come from. He's wearing the doctor's hat, the this and that. It was just crazy mental. But this house was just like the young ones, and we used to live here. There was also another guy in there, the lead singer of a band called the Flaming Groovies, and which were a kind of really cool band. And my friend was going out with him at the time, and it was great until one day. I think Chris had got some kind of, we had some kind of row. The next thing you know, we're calling the police because he's running outside with a hammer or something. But they were great times in there. Number 19 Bracy Street. That's where it was at, in Hornsey. Okay, I've just come out, would you believe, of this 19 Bracy Street where I used to live near on 40 years ago. I think it was 1981 was the time, and I used to live here. And we've just knocked on the door, and Sheila and Jerry have just let us in the house. Surreal. Everything's changed, everything looks different, but my room looks the same apart from the furniture inside it. It still looks the same, so I was a bit emotional, to be fair, because it was a part of my life that I enjoyed.
I sit alone now, wondering about you. I'm living my life. What do? You say you want me, but need success. I want your love, boy, want nothing less. It's the sign of the times, peace of more to come. It's the sign of the times, time to be alone.
So what you've just seen is a small part of the journey leading up to the Bellestars, and then after the Bellestars, or in fact during the Bellestars, it was an incredible time in my life. It was like a fairy tale, and it was a great experience. I remember meeting loads of different celebrities. We were all celebrities at that time. Top of the Pops was an experience, and we were up on the level there for 5 years. It was a wonderful experience with all the bands and all the people. But when the band finished, I took the path of drugs, and I believe that was me self-medicating from the past pains that I had. And I stayed that way for roughly around about 8 years. But I did eventually get out of that. I got out of that, and I went down the path of teaching from experienced drug awareness in schools, which then allowed me to obtain awards for the works that I was doing with young people in schools. I even set up a charity with some good friends of mine, Kishi Yamamoto, Adrian Sherwood. We all had this kind of thing that we did, and it was like called Esteem, and Shauna. We had some amazing people in that charity. And then I went on to do other things, and it's now brought me onto the current day. And the current day finds me now creating projects for the masses on a much larger scale. So it's been a journey. It's been a journey that's brought me to this place, and I've used every experience in order to be able to share with those who have gone through a very similar thing. I invite you please to read Surviving the Storm to find out more. Thank you.